Alright, hello everyone, it's Mystic Juicer and welcome to part 2 of Let's Love Undertale, my post-playthrough of Undertale, where I talk about all the things that I absolutely love about this game, all the cool stuff that it does with sound and character design and all the different design choices that it makes. And basically just a great excuse for me to gush about how lovely this game is and how everyone should go buy it. Even if you've watched a playthrough of this, I highly recommend that you check out the game for itself, for purchase, because it is, first of all, it's an emotional journey. I'm sure if you've seen any Let's Plays, you already know that fact, but it's definitely one that is best experienced with yourself in the driver's seat, making all of the decisions and calls, and the gameplay is a lot of fun. So with that all out of the way, let's continue on our journey here. The one thing I wanted to mention after the first part here that I didn't really touch on is the palette, the color choices that the game makes. So we're in front of Toriel's house here, we're in the ruins. All of the colors are really stark. There's a lot of contrast between them. The main motif is purple. It's kind of an odd, kind of unnatural color. The contrast against the leaves that are a fixture of this part of the game that show up a lot of red against purple is a really bold and kind of unnatural mix of colors. It is not really a restful palette, and that kind of comes across. It's painting a very clear picture of the ruins as this dead, or kind of, having this lifeless tree in the front here also sets that in your mind. It's not a thriving place. It's not a particularly restful place. It is definitely, it's maybe, if it isn't scary, because the ruins aren't particularly scary, the way that Toriel walks you through them, and the fact that it's not a very significant challenge to get through this part of the game, as it is kind of the introductory level from a gameplay standpoint. But it still nonetheless manages to carry this this impression and this sense of being a not alive place, of being slightly uncomfortable, of being of not being particularly welcoming. And then as soon as we enter Toriel's house, the palette is immediately more restful. The entire palette of this house is very, very, there's very little contrast. It's beige, it's brown, it's kind of beigey brown shades of green, it's grays, it's yellows. There are no, actually no. So this entranceway is painted that way, and if we head to the left, we have a similar kind of palette. We get some golds, some reds that fit into that color scheme. The kitchen is again very homey. It goes into a little more auburn kind of colors, more deeper browns maybe. Only when we head over to the right-hand side, which I didn't really realize until just this moment, is it's a much yellower, a much stronger yellow here. Although, again, still, all of the colors used are very, they're not very far from each other in terms of their place on a color wheel. You would be in a very similar area if you opened up, like my point of comparison, like if you opened up MS Paint, or for me, like Excel, that's the program I'm more used to. All of these colors are very, very close to each other. When we come into Toriel's room, we have our first significant change of palette inside this room, and it is specifically blue, with one focal point, one element that is significant, actually two elements that are significantly outside of this. I mean, it's almost comical how one note this room is in terms of its color, right? It is contrasted even to the hallway, where sure there's a lot of yellow, but we have this we have different shades of yellow on the flowers. We have some reds going on. We have some amount of, even when we're talking about this house, which has very, very little contrast in terms of its palette in any of the specific rooms. As soon as you enter Toriel's room, it's almost comical how little contrast is. None of the books, in contrast to some of the other shelves that we see in the house, none of the books here are differ from each other at all in terms of their color. The entire room is painted in essentially 2 or 3 shades of blue, except for the yellow flower on the bookshelf and the red circle in the diary. And the picture that it paints, again, going back to Toriel at this stage in her life, as being this very caring, very gentle, very almost definitely overprotective character, who nevertheless has this subtle sadness about her. The fact that when you read the joke diary, the joke is about wanting a friend. It's about loneliness or boneliness. And it's, the first time you read it, having not gone through the rest of the game, a lot of this doesn't really hit you. But you do kind of get a sense of her and how alone she is, how isolating this is, how isolated an existence and a life that she leads in this little house in the ruins that everyone else has moved on from to go deeper into the cave. And obviously the significance of the yellow flower we'll talk about throughout the game, but the relationship that Toriel has to Flowey, and how that all, and specifically this yellow flower in particular, has a lot to, says a lot, and the fact that it's a focal point here is a really nice, it's a beautiful Easter egg. It's a very nice Easter egg that kind of goes, oh, okay, I've played this a couple of times. This is really cool. I kind of didn't notice that. But it is also, once you know the story, a beautiful and sad reminder of the tragedy that lives at the center of Toriel's character. So, wow. Kudos to the incredible design choices in this game. When we come into the kids' room, it's incredibly one note in terms of its palette. The contrast against Toriel's room, that hers is entirely blue, and the kids' room is this really kind of garish, a little bit garish shade of red. It's a little much, and you can turn out the light to kind of soften that. But when you turn it on, it's a very striking room. I'm not sure exactly what whether red has any significance here in particular, but it is definitely more, it's a bolder room. It's definitely like, we could talk about just purely from my thinking here, having a kids room. Kids rooms are often more like in terms of their color palette, tend to be brighter, tend to be more cartoony, more bold in terms of the way they look, maybe. The fact that this little drawing of the flower, which even the way it bends to the side should immediately kind of, if you've noticed this flower, tweak you to the fact that, like, okay, there's the why is Flowey here? What's going on exactly? And the fact that you don't even get to, there's no text associated with the picture. When you walk over to it and try to examine it, it's the shoebox that your character looks at. And again, great bit of writing here about this box of shoes in a variety of sizes. Not, like, the implication here is not that this is, you know, the shoes of one kid who grew up for, you know, over a period of time and just outgrew a bunch of sizes. Disparity of sizes implies, to me at least, a much larger kind of variation between who these shoes are for, that they don't all belong to the same kid. And that, I think, fits very neatly with an interpretation that these are shoes for, you know, this is a stopping point for all of the kids that have fallen down into the ruins. And that tutorial has taken care of before they have moved on. So yeah, again, incredible writing, and a lot of thought being put into color choices in this in every level in this game, but especially just a lot of content and tone and information imparted to the player purely through these very simple design decisions, which is awesome. The deliberateness of this game and the way that it is put together, in terms of its color, in terms of its music, in terms of timing, and I'll get to that when it's a bit better illustrated in later parts of the game. But the timing of this game is incredible in terms of, like, comedic timing, in terms of dramatic timing, of moment to moment exchanges. And considering that you just have you interact with this game through text boxes, right? You know, you advance dialogue. That is the main kind of action that you are taking when you are interacting with another character, or examining parts of the environment. It's just moving, you know, advancing text boxes, but the amount of care and deliberate choices that are made in doing so and how they advance is really brilliant. So I'll get to that in a bit. But now it's time to have our hearts broken. So we're gonna talk tutorial and we're gonna move on. And I love how, like, it's if you're looking at this as just an RPG, where, you know, contrast it with older style RPGs that have you know, more I don't want to say universal plots, but like larger scale plots. Like, contrast it with the Final Fantasy games, but let's contrast it specifically with Final Fantasy 1, for instance, the very first one. You start your party, you pick 4 different classes, you give those classes, those particular characters, names, and you move into the world and you immediately start getting quests. You go to the king says you have to do XYZ, or, you know, the princess has been kidnapped, please rescue her, here's where you have to go. You start leveling up, etc., etc., etc. So there are typically, you know, these kinds of dialogue choices. You interact with an NPC, and you have, I've actually, in the first one, I don't think you get any of those types of things. You don't typically have kind of false choices of, you know, do you want to continue and advance the story, or do you not? And do you want to hold back and continue shopping in town, or leveling up or whatnot? But in those games where the themes, or where the plot of the game, the plots of the game are much more impersonal. That's the word I'm looking for. Where the plots are much more impersonal, where they have less to do with who your party is as characters, and more to do with broad, impersonal objectives that you need to achieve. This kind of dialogue choice has no impact to you as a player. It's purely a mechanical decision of, do I want to advance the story, or am I not ready to do so yet because I haven't accomplished some preparation that I need to do. In comparison here, I'm immediately, like, even this dialogue choice is just slightly heartbreaking, where, you walk up to this character who's taken you in and has shown you kindness, and clearly wants the best for your character, right? I'm going to leave the player out of it, but wants the best for the character you are playing, wants to protect them and make sure that they are prepared to live in the ruins, and that they're fed, and makes you a cake pie, to celebrate your arrival, and has a room ready for you, and wants to share with you all these books that she loves, and show you her favorite bug hunting spot in the ruins. And when you have a choice about whether you want to advance the story or hear about her book, I don't think I have ever not asked her to tell me an interesting snail fact at least once, just because I want to. I don't want to be cold to her. I don't want to immediately leave. And the fact is, I don't know how much of it is an actual fact and how much of it is her telling you a joke. But given what we know about her and her love of puns, and what we will learn about her love of puns, I think it's about equal 50-50 shot either way. And yeah, so she's content to read and let you explore the house, and she's not overbearing as a character here, as she was in the ruins. You're safe now. She doesn't have to pay as much attention and keep an eye on you at all times. You can basically safely make your way out in the world and spend as much time in the ruins as you want, knowing that you can come back, and she'll be here, and you guys can go and have adventures and stuff. But of course, in order to so the first time you get this dialogue choice, you have an option to actually advance the dialogue, right, to see what else she has to say. As soon as that happened once, the game immediately tells you there is nothing more here, right? In order to it's very clearly conveying to you this is all there is, and in a way that kind of fits the fairy tale structure of stories, right? You've had your call to action. If we talk about like basic plot structure, or 3-act plot structure, you have your inciting incident or your call to action or whatnot, the thing that kicks everything off. You've fallen into this hole. You're in a world of monsters. You're taken in, and you've come to a place of rest and safety. But of course, as a hero, as a protagonist, you can't stop here. This isn't a story. A child falls down a hole and meets a goat mom. The end is not a story, and it doesn't fix any of the problems that any of the characters in this game have. So staying here, while it is tempting, simply because of the kindness that Toriel shows you. And it becomes, in fact, more tempting the more times you've played through it, just because you know who this character is. The character becomes more tragic the more you know about her story. So you want nothing but the best for her. But you can only achieve the best for her by leaving the ruins. So immediately, you know, she's startled. The dialogue makes it pretty clear that she's upset. She leaves the chair immediately. Is there anything secretive about the chair? Seems like the right size for Toriel. Sorry. I know this is really going to be jarring. This doesn't make all that much sense, but there was a bit when I was reviewing the first episode of this series. This bit of dialogue, I realized I didn't comment on it at all, and it's a complete throwaway joke, and I'm sorry for breaking the mood, whatever mood I've established. But definitely bigger than a twin-sized bed is fantastic writing. Because, of course, at this point, you know, playing through it for the first time, you don't know that Toriel is, you know, the queen of the monsters. So it's a queen-sized bed, but to not give it away, you know, the description of the bed is this really weird, vague description of the size, which I really, really love. But yes, let's go back to serious time. Sorry. Okay, so the one place we haven't explored is down these stairs. And again, talking about palette. As soon as you walk down the stairs, it's purple. Palette is back to the ruins. It's a part of the house that is in the same way as the ruins, garish, uncomfortable, strange. And if you don't talk to Toriel before going down here, you can't advance very far before Toriel comes down and goes, "Oh, please, let's, you know, I'd really prefer it if you played in the house. Don't continue down this path." So it builds up this mystery of like what is going on with this passage inside this house. And again, note the lack of music. We have disrupted entirely the welcoming, melancholy, kind tone of Toriel's house, and we've come to somewhere unknown, where we're not sure where we're headed. What are we in for? It also really beautifully gives Toriel's voice room to shine, because there's nothing interrupting it. It's just her dialogue, you know. And it's strange that this kind of the typing noise as text appears for characters, how effective that is at conveying characterization, but I hope that comes across. It definitely came across to me when I was playing it, that the choice of pitches and the way that the dialogue is presented with that tone just does a lot to give these characters more expression than very simple sprite art would do on its own, which I think is like, it's genius. It's friggin' awesome. So let's continue. And again, we have that very clear instruction, and the combination of the palette and the lack of music continues to convey that this is a point of no return. This is an important, this is a key moment for both our character and for Toriel's character. note the contrast of the character sprite. You know, she doesn't want to. She's explicitly avoiding our eyes as she talks about this this thing that she needs to do, that she wants to do. And here we get a clear call out that this is not the first time this has happened. We're not the first human that's fallen down into the ruins. And again, I love the brevity of the writing. The pushing the music out of the way. You know, it's a bare hallway. There's nothing of visual interest except for our two characters. The fact that Toriel does not turn around to tell your character this, that she doesn't meet your eyes, that she can't look at you when she's telling you this, conveys so much about her emotions, how she feels about what she's doing, that she is trying to do this to protect you, but is also aware of the fact that it means that she is categorically saying, you, like, this is your life now. There is no way out of this for you. To go forward is to die. And I've seen that happen too many times. So it stops here. I'm going to stop this from happening. And I think that is the... so she does it just previously when she says, you know, please go back to the house. But here it's the first time, I think, that Toriel has explicitly asked or explicitly told you to do something. In the tutorial level, you know, there's an encouraging tone, right? Please walk to the end of this room alone, right? You know, talk to the dummy and, you know, behave properly, kind of thing. But here it's very different. This is a command. There's a sense here that this is for your own good, but also not. And again, little subtle stuff about her character portrait, right? The slightly lowered eyebrows, the more serious picture of her eyes, the fact that you can just slightly see her teeth when she's talking in this scene. All little stuff, right? But it makes such a huge difference in terms of the tone and everything. And again, the fact that that you are, like, again, in that classic fairy tale structure, the heroes in those stories, in particular kinds of those stories, they're not the first ones to attempt, you know, to slay the evil or to right the wrong, but they're, you know, typically the third one, because 3 is that magic number, right? Where the first person fails, they're too bold. The second person fails, they're too meek. Third person gets it right, or whatever the teaching story is for that particular fairy tale, or the contrast they want to set up. But again, in this is a cycle. This is a self-perpetuating story, and that you are just one in a long line of people, of kids who have come to this place. And however, you do get the sense that this is maybe the first time that it's, this is a breaking point. And again, to take it back to that fairy tale motif, something about that, whatever the hero is in that story, there's something about the telling of this particular story that is different from the others. They're destined, or there was a prophecy, or something, or some other point of crisis that was previously regulated is no longer able to continue the cycle in a clean way. And here we have this break. Toriel has finally had enough. You're the last straw. It's been too hard, and she can no longer do this. And we get a very long, drawn-out start to the battle scene when we start the Toriel fight, right? The lights dim very slowly in comparison to any of the other random encounters we have so far encountered, and it really is to give this a much bigger sense of gravitas. And God, the music is so good. I just love this track in particular. Is incredible. So all right, so we're fighting Toriel. And this is one of the best fights in the entire game. It's one of the best encounters in the entire game. The way that it teaches you and asks you to progress if you want to continue with a clean conscience is really, really well done, I feel. And it's also really, really cruel, and I'll get into that. So your first instinct, of course, is to follow Toriel's advice, right? If you encounter something, and you encounter a monster and there is a fight, then talk to it first. And yeah, the battle dialogue is phenomenal. In terms of characterizing Toriel further, that she does this out of a sense of trying to protect you from yourself, but that she is also conflicted about what she's doing. So again, we're advancing the dialogue. We are getting a sense of advancement, because the dialogue is changing as we continue to talk to her. So it seems like we should be right on the right track if we continue this. So okay, now we have the game is explicitly telling us, hey, this is not the way to continue this particular encounter. Okay, fine. Life's getting low. At this point, I'm not particularly great at this type of, bullet hell game. So there's real moments of tension where you're like, okay, well, can I risk? Is it testing me now? I'm explicitly being tested. That's what Toriel has said before we started this fight. Do I continue to talk to her even after? Is it a trap that's being set up? That she's saying, the dialogue says, talking probably isn't the thing forward, so let's maybe try it one more time. And then this time we go, okay, all right, now the game, not only has the game explicitly told us this is not the way to advance this encounter, but we, in explicit terms through the text of the game, but also contextually through our knowledge of the way that games work, there are characters and there are situations where talking to them multiple times can lead to different dialogue choices. So the surest sign that there is nothing more to learn, that this is a dead end conversationally or in terms of advancing the plot, is to show the same piece of dialogue multiple times. And so we've seen it twice, so we're going, okay, all right, okay, so now I can actually believe the game, right? I can take it what it's saying at face value. I believe it is truthful. Talking is not the approach I need to be taking. So now the question is, well, what else can I do? And if you think back far enough to the start of the game, you can say, oh, okay, well, there was that one frog that said, you know, you may have to spare someone even though the spare option is not yellow. So, okay, well, I mean, let's try that. Try sparing. Like, oh, okay, hey, we got rewarded. The game actually rewarded us for taking that approach, and by giving us something new, by showing us some new dialogue, by showing us a new element or something, by changing what happens when we do it. So again, contextually, from previous games, if you played any kind of RPG or this style of game before, you probably have a sense that, okay, now I'm on the right track. And even the fact that it's 2 lines of dots rather than 1 is in its, you know, does enough on its own to give you a sense of like, okay, I'm still on the right track. If it had just shown 1 set of dots again, there wouldn't be that sense of you would immediately be in the same position as we were when we went to the talk option twice, right? Ironically, this doesn't seem to be the approach to move things forward. If they showed another 1 line of dots, you go, okay, well maybe that's not the option either. So this is a very clear, okay, it's not very clear, but based on experience with other video games, we can say it is a fairly clear sense of what we, like the game pushing you to say, yes, this is in fact the way forward. Again, love the writing, just the fact that it continues to really clearly show you what Toriel is going through. So now we're at 3 hit points, and we have candy, and we have donuts, and we have this band-aid, we have all these healing items and stuff. And the first time I went through this fight, and shoutouts to Cloud Cuckoo Country for his excellent video on the conventions of Undertale and its use of conventional elements of RPGs and these types of stories and these types of games, for pointing out how cruel this is as an encounter, because your temptation here is like, oh god, I'm actually in trouble. Like this is a legitimate fight. I am losing hit points, and it seems to me, when I was playing through this the first time, it seems like, oh, okay, well, so obviously it's some sort of endurance test, right? I found a way now through the mercy option to advance the encounter, but I need to advance it several more times. Clearly, I'm not anywhere close to finishing this yet. So I have to start healing up. And you'll start using healing items, and especially being new to the game, I went through every healing item, including, the pie, which is this, powerful healing item. It heals you for your full hit points. At this point of the game, that's pretty amazing. Like, okay, great, fantastic, I can use that. And there's all these little things, the spider donut, the pie, are items that also have effects way later in the game, that open up new dialogue, that have more content that you can take out of them. And if you use all of them up in this first encounter, then you lose a whole bunch of little stuff that you could have taken, and more content that you could have seen, that you probably see on your second playthrough. And even in spite of using all of these healing items, I still ended up finding the second kind of clue, or the second phase of the Toriel fight, which will come up shortly. And then first time I encounter this screen, I'm like, what's going on? Why? And again, coming back to that idea in the first section about how much characterization happens just in terms of the movement, your choice of movement in these encounters, where all of a sudden you have this, you know, you're at 2 hit points and it looks like all the fire in Toriel's attacks explicitly is missing you, like it's being pushed out of the way and is staying as far away as possible. And then you go into spare again, and you haven't moved because you were too scared, but now you start, you know, moving towards the fight, like, you know, like you as a kid, you thought you were in this serious situation, you're maybe paralyzed the first time something changes, then you start slowly moving around and seeing how real it is. Like there's this tentativeness to the movement that you just sort of naturally, or at least that I naturally had when I encountered this situation in the first place, and is just a brilliant extra bit of, you know, who your character is, how your character is acting, in this very simplistic, you know, bare bones presentation, right? It's a still picture of the character, there's a text box, there's a background of some green squares, like, and yet there's still this very evocative use of just motion, and it's the key of it, the thing that makes it so effective at characterizing who your character is and makes it so poignant, is that it's all under your control. It's not game, like it's not something imposed by the game itself. You are the one. You are the one who is tentatively feeling out what's going on. You're the one who is confused, or, you know, and physically acting that out through the avatar in the game, which is just brilliant. And that's basically, like, all of those elements, the fact that this is in fact, yes, a tutorial for the rest of the boss monsters that you encounter in the game, in terms of their approach. You know, talking usually will not do anything. You will have to continuously choose spare if you want to go through the pacifist route. Not as much the fact that, you know, monsters will not, like the future bosses will not in fact kill you, because they will. You can in fact die and reach a game over screen, but everything else about it, use of the items, of your healing items, all of this is just beautifully communicated and in such an emotional way. So I'm going to stop talking for the rest of this fight and just let the dialogue speak for itself. Note the expressions, like Toriel's expression, when, you know, between the start of this. I'm sorry, I said I was going to talk, but I noticed something I wanted to touch on. When you're distracted at first by actually trying to dodge Toriel's attacks, you can't watch her expression as well. And now that you have nothing to fear, your attention will look up at Toriel, and you can see that even as she's attacking you, she can't meet your eyes. No more music. Aw. That's always such a gut punch. Everything about that encounter is just tragic. The fact that, again, considering how few frames of animation that any characters get, I love the fact that Toriel gets to give you a hug. All of her animations are her showing you kindness, right? When she leads you through the spikes in the first encounter in the ruins, she holds your hand. When she shows you the room you can use in her house, she pats your head. And when you confront her and prove that you can make it, that your will and your determination and your stubbornness to continue are stronger than her, that stand up to the challenge of her telling you it's dangerous, that you will die out there. She gives you a hug before sending you on your way. And I don't know if there's a better encapsulation of why this game is as phenomenal as it is. That, and the fact that, you know, your character is locked while Toriel is still on the screen. So you, the character, are looking at the door, right? Your reward for standing up to Toriel, for refusing to back down. And so your character doesn't see her walk off back towards the house and then turn around one last time. To look at you before she goes back. Sorry. I absolutely knew this would happen. But I think that's one of the sweetest moments in any game I've played. Ever. And it's why this game is awesome. So, it's time to officially start our adventure. And we had our little victory fanfare, right? We were rewarded with a song. And as soon as we walk past the door into this hallway, the music stops. Do we regret our decision? Is there a temptation to go back? You know, do you try to visit Toriel again while you still can? And then we meet this sucker. And it's, oh man, I'll talk a little bit about this in a second. So creepy. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about that encounter. So, you've just been brutalized emotionally, right? If you're me, you've gone through most of a box of Kleenex the first time you went through that. Definitely doesn't get any easier. The Toriel encounter is always hard emotionally for me. But you are just coming off of that intimate tragedy, right? You have just hurt someone that you care for a lot. And then you meet this preening, gloating antagonist, and they belittle you for being clever, you know, for being a good gamer and knowing how to progress, you know, along the appointed pacifist route. And they very clearly articulate, so first of all, you hate Flowey. Like, I hate Flowey for reducing what just happened to what actually, you know, just the physical actions, the gamified choices that you just went through. If you were moved by what happened previously, Flowey does his best to cheapen that, to mock you for your sentimentality. And then they illustrate the stakes of the game. Vaguely, but nevertheless, they crystallize the themes of the game and the stakes that are in play. Okay, you managed to make make your way this far without killing. But can you keep that up? And again, coming from this, on the heels of this insult, of this cheapening, of this, you know, devaluing of your emotions, of you as a player, your emotional reaction to what just happened previously. My immediate reaction, I think the reaction that's looked for is, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to, if I wasn't already set on being kind and not hurting anyone in this playthrough, then damn it, now I am absolutely on that road, which is phenomenal. It is so good. As an antagonist, I care so much about proving Flowey wrong. More than almost any other antagonist. Like, he's up there with all the other phenomenal antagonists in other RPGs that you absolutely hate. That get under your skin and that actually manage to provoke an emotional response from you. And then also lays the further stakes of, so not only that, so okay, you made it this far, but I'm also promising you that the Flowey's also promising that there is a villain here that cannot be, that may not be able to be beaten without violence. That your ideals that you're naively clinging to at this stage of the game may not be enough to get you through the rest of this game, while holding them intact. And so on its face, that interaction happens, but also from a game standpoint, from communication about how to advance, like basic how to advance this story and how to advance and progress to the end of the game, how to beat the game. How much can we trust what he says? How much can we trust that they are being truthful in that instance? Will we have to compromise our ideals of pacifism in order to beat the game? And yet, the fact that it's delivered in such a goading, antagonistic way sets us up to want to prove him wrong. You know, whatever else we may do, whatever our other goals may be, more than anything, we want to prove Flowey wrong. So kudos to the writing in this game once again. And just to bring everything home, we immediately, as soon as we get the mission statement of the game, we get the title sequence. And that bass note, you know, brilliantly hammering home, you know, via audio, literally hammering home the importance of this choice and this this theme and its weight, essentially. Weird. Also love the audio here. So two things before we move on. One, we've got our an immediate separation between the ruins and this place beyond the ruins in terms of palette. So we have the purple of the ruins, of the mountain and the door, contrasted against these woods that we suddenly find ourselves in. So there's a very clear palette difference, and the sound is also incredibly different. So if no sound, if no music, if no incidental audio is meant to clear the room, like to unsettle us, to in the tutorial section, it unsettles us. It removes us from what genre, or it removes us from any clues as to the tone of the scene that we are about to enter. It gives, it focuses our attention on the characters, the dialogue, the animations of any of the characters that we see. It focuses entirely visually on whatever else we can see or perceive, because we are no longer getting any context clues or any contextual information, any tonal information from the audio itself. And now that we move into, now that we're outside the tutorial, right, we have this hard break We had our first boss encounter. We had the encounter with Flowey after our encounter with Toriel to really hit home and essentially write the thesis statement for what this game is about, or what it's going to be about for the rest of the game. We got the credit sequence, so we have this incredibly harsh delineation between the start of the game and the now you are in the game proper. And so what do we get from the audio? If we had, like, let's take a moment to talk about this. If there was no sound here, we would have that same we would have a similar uneasiness, right? We would see, okay, well, I'm not sure exactly where I am tonally, but it's not the same as it would have been if we were still in the tutorial. You know, we've had the game explained to us now, so we are going to continue our interaction with the game, our sense of what the game is trying to communicate, based on everything we've already learned. So having no incidental audio, no soundtrack, we would carry whatever we had just gone through forward. Instead, we have this weird, bassy nothingness, right? This kind of unsettling. It's deliberately unsettling, but not in the way a kind of creepy score would be unsettling. Because a musical, like a soundtrack piece here that was creepy to listen to would still give us a sense of, like, it would be to some degree set dressing, right? It's context, but it's still very gamey. Whereas this weird rumbly thing is explicitly not music. So we're still serious, we're still in this heavy place, but it's a new place, so we're kind of on tenterhooks in a way that is different than we were in the ruins when the sound cut out. Hopefully that was sort of clear. Did you catch that? The twig breaking? Just as we clear the tree? The figure? That change in tone. We're being followed. I love that. The tension ratcheting up. Heavy footfalls through snow. And again, we have been primed by Toriel to be worried here, right? The stakes are higher. We know the stakes now. No child has ever survived this place we're in. And there's no voice for this character. We're not given any clues as to their personality, same way we have with Toriel. In fact, they have this broken, unnatural way of speaking. The pauses between the letters, the spaces between the letters. You know, not a voice, not a normal voice. and then the resolution of the tension. So good. Game is so good. So hello all. Welcome to our first friend. Or a second friend, I guess. Again, I love Sans' introduction. I love Sans as a character, super fantastic. But again, everything immediately changes as soon as the whoopee cushion goes off, right? We have this brilliant breaking of tension. We have this sense of relief. Okay, maybe this next part is not going to be as scary. Maybe the rest of this game isn't going to be non-stop scariness. Maybe, some of that same humor that we saw on the tutorial level is going to be carried through for the rest of the series, or the rest of the game, right? We have this sense of like, okay, all right, okay. So there's going to be, even now, there's conveyance happening. There's communication about what this game is, what to expect, and how you can expect to see it. I love the choice of voice for Sans. The fact that you can immediately translate how he speaks to like a human voice, like, oh, I'm actually supposed to be like, that's where my mind immediately goes, like this kind of like slightly bro-ish, like kind of very lazy. He's got his hands in his pockets, a little bit too cool for school kind of guy here. It's really good. Escape thingy. And okay, so first of all, Papyrus's theme, phenomenal, like so good, great bit of music. But again, this characterization, like for Papyrus, is so perfect. I think everyone on the internet, like, say what you will about Sans and like Toriel and what their dialogue like conveys about what they would actually sound like in real life. But Papyrus's, I don't think anyone who's ever played this game didn't have an immediate have immediately the exact same picture of what he sounds like. It's like, you know what's up, brother? Like, it's so good. So good. Like, of all of the characters... Of all the characters in the game, he is, I think, the most difficult not to speak along with when you're playing the game. Oh, so good. So good. No! The flapping cape, like, all of the animations for him, so fantastic. This lamp will help you. So okay, just that bit. Like the highlighting, like the extreme close-up, the fact that Sans gets his own like cutaway like insert and rim shot sound effect. I want to go back to timing, which I talked a little bit before at the start of the video. The fact that you are in control of when you advance dialogue makes such a big difference in terms of how well paced all of the jokes and all of the just emotional moments in this game come across. because literally you are the one who chooses the ideal timing. So it's this really subtle way of guaranteeing that some of this, that jokes land better explicitly for the person who's playing it. It's so genius. Like, I was literally speechless when I realized like how just smart it was to put all of that under the player's control, to get that, to fine tune the timing of all of these jokes is so brilliant, so good. I am, and I hate it. Just the timing, like the fact that it goes to ellipses before that, and you can literally see the punchline coming and just like preemptively put your head in your hands and then like take full 30-second beat and then advance the dialogue to down to the bone. It's just so good. It's so good. Ah. It's so good. All right, sweet lamp. It's just a conveniently shaped lamp. And we immediately speed off. Actually, so that puts us at about an hour. So before advancing to the rest of this part of the game, actually, no, I haven't saved yet. Okay, so we'll advance to the next save point, and then I will, move on and pause things. And then we get the musical theme of this area in the game kicking in, which is beautiful. Really simple melody. Starting off just with piano, it's, very deliberate. It's very simple, it's very clear. It's very gentle. There's still just a little bit of wistfulness to it. It's not entirely in a really, it's not bombastic. So we're still carrying through this kind of sense of peril, but we're back in the game, right? We're back in a place where there's an adventure. We're situated in a more in a less tension-filled mode of thinking. And with that, and again, just there's a little bit of subversion of that of the theme of this area, of the soundtrack of this area, just to give you a sense that, like, okay, yeah, don't worry too much. You're going to be introduced to a human capturing fanatic skeleton and his brother assures you that, hey, it's fine. Don't worry, he's not really dangerous, even if he tries to be. But yeah, the convenience of that lamp still fills you with determination. And we are snowed in on the box road, and that's where we're going to leave things for now. So thank you again for watching it, for making it so far. If there's anything that I missed, in this last section. I know we didn't advance very, very far, but there was a lot I wanted to talk about, clearly, in that last encounter and this move into the rest of the game. The rest of this section will probably move fairly quickly, as it is more lighthearted. I'm just going to let the jokes land for themselves and show off a little bit about some of the encounters and whatnot. So until next time, thank you for watching, thank you for enjoying it, and in continuing the theme of Let's Love Undertale, I hope you've loved it, and I hope, I hope your day is just wonderful and fantastic, full of happy stuff. Alright, and with that, I will finish this rambling sign-off and wish you all the best, and see you next time. Cheers.